So furthermore, this brings us to nice Whoopi Goldberg of The View and others reacting to the Dobbs decision that took place on Friday, losing their minds and saying just a bunch of just stupid stuff. So here is Whoopi Goldberg shouting to the skies a bunch of nonsense.
Nothing is precedent anymore.
Well, you better hope that they don't come for you, Clarence, and say you should not be married to your wife who happens to be white. Because they will move that. And you better hope that nobody says, you know, well, you're not in the Constitution, you're back to being a quarter of a person. Because that's not going to work either.
So there's The View. Oh, it's going to go back to the 50s and all this stuff. You know, you're not going to be able to be married to your wife because his wife is white, if you didn't know. And it's just, they say this nonsense, and then there's nobody around them, right? There's nobody on that panel that's going to sit there and actually question their thoughts, question the things that come out of their mouths. And I don't understand it, how they could just sit there and just say this stuff day in and day out, and there's people that just absorb this and go, oh, this is great. This is totally right. And they're taken as legitimate. Like, the stuff that they say is so insane, but there's people that just sit there and absorb it and go, oh, you know, they're right. Rather than going, hey, you know what? Like, maybe there's some things in there that sound a little off. Like saying that, you know, you're not going to be a whole person, that you're going to go back to 3/5 of a person. Or that you're not going to be acknowledged as the husband of a person that's married to a white person because you're black. Like, these are just crazy thoughts that are just being spewed. And they're not just coming from just The View, but they're coming from other people. Now, before we get into those other people, you also have Sunny from The View talking about how certain religious people that are Americans are voting in favor of their religious views rather than what they should be doing in terms of the Supreme Court and following what was precedents before. So here's Sunny doing basically the same thing as Whoopi Goldberg was, saying a bunch of silly stuff.
I think our viewers know this. I don't believe in abortion at any time. I don't believe in any exception to it. I don't believe it. No,
even incest.
No, I don't. I don't. And that's considered very radical and for many people. And it's because I'm Catholic and that's my faith. And, you know, the justices, there are 6 Catholics on the bench. And there will be 2 Protestants because the newest Justice, Ketanji Brown Jackson, is Protestant, and there'll be 1 person of Jewish faith. And so this has always been a very difficult discussion for me. But what is not difficult for me is the fact that this is an activist Supreme Court, and they should not be deciding the law based on their faith.
So we'll pause it there, and there's more that she's about to say here in terms of guns and stuff. And again, it's literally nonsense. But she's making the claim that these justices created an opinion based on their faith. When we just went through the prior justices of 2 different cases, Supreme Court cases, again, there's more that even before that, to where they came up with all this crazy shenanigans that just made this stuff out of whole cloth, just out of thin air. And again, you have tons of lawyers that will come out, and constitutional lawyers, and also prior Supreme Court justices, and again, even known clerks of the Supreme Court justice who wrote the opinion of Roe v. Wade, going, yeah, this is bad law, this was terrible, doesn't make sense, you're not going to find abortion anywhere. You had even the Supreme Court justices prior that said, you're not going to find the word abortion anywhere, we just basically made it up, without actually them saying explicitly that they made it up. So they would use words like penumbras and emanations to describe how they made this stuff up. But according to Sunny and The Views, you know, this all has to do with their religion and all this other stuff. Crazy.
And and it's just, and even though I agree with Alito on the sanctity of life, and he is clearly against abortion because he's had this
he's never had to have one, so he can make those kinds of
things. But the fact that he clearly is using his religion and wielding it as a
how does that reconcile with RBG, though, who always was dissenting? She did not like the way Roe v. Wade was decided, but she was someone that saw the Constitution as a living document. She had a different interpretation, philosophically speaking, yet she felt legally that there was an argument there. So does this necessarily mean it's a religion?
Don't we have church, separation of
church? No, we don't anymore.
I mean, Clarence Thomas used to have a seance and have Thomas Jefferson there and Alexander Hamilton. Hello?
Yeah.
Do we still have a separation of church and state here as in the Constitution?
Yeah, I love that these same people that bash Thomas Jefferson and others, consistently calling them racist, all of a sudden want to talk and utilize their quotes, and all now they're buddy with them. Oh, we should call them up, you know, and see what they think about all this. Now they're all cool with Thomas Jefferson, George Washington, all these people at the beginning of the foundation of this country. But when it goes against the grain, all of a sudden they want to attack them.
It's the First Amendment guarantee, and we don't seem to have that anymore.
Well, we're in a theocracy.
Okay, and then you have her saying that we're in a theocracy. Alrighty. And again, I know I'm repeating myself, but nobody's going to go out against them and go, hey, well, what the hell did you just say? How does what you say make sense? Can you justify those words that just came out of your mouth? Again, Behar suggested that Justice Clarence Thomas ought to have a sense of contact both Thomas Jefferson and Alexander Hamilton. Hello, do we still have a separation of church and state? Is there a constitution? Behar said. It's a First Amendment guarantee, and we don't seem to have it anymore. House to complain. We are a theocracy right now, Behar insisted. So, and you get this coming from politicians, from the left, the progressive left, from Antifa. You have Lori Lightfoot of Chicago acting like she's above all of us here in going against Roe v. Wade, of saying, hey, we need a reversal. We're not yielding any ground. And she's putting all her efforts into this when she has massive crime surge going across her counties and her state. And she's going to sit there and say all this stuff. Let's listen to it.
Came forward. She said that Illinois would be an oasis. Let's listen in.
The activist agenda of this conservative majority, where they want to overturn many of the precedents that were premised upon Roe v. Wade's right to privacy. But I got a message for Justice Thomas and for the Supreme Court. We will not let you take away our rights under any circumstances. These rights are hard fought. These rights are in the spirit of who we are as Americans. We're not going to go back to a day when women do not have bodily autonomy. We're not going to go back to a day where interracial marriage is vilified. We will not go back to a day when gay men in loving each other is treated as criminal act. And we will not retreat from same-gender marriage. We're not going backwards. So we're going to get people activated, we're going to mobilize, and we're going to fight with all our heart to make sure that the American promise of equal justice under law is real, that it is living and breathing in our country today. So while this decision is angering and frustrating, it's a momentary setback. And we will be even more determined and more adamant to make sure that our rights are respected under law. We're not going backwards. And if the Supreme Court wants to continue to be a politicized organization which delegitimizes itself in the institution, which derobs it of any credibility or legitimacy, so be it. But what I know and what I...
Okay. I think I've had enough of her talking. So it's just all about legitimacy. It goes against them. It's so funny. Whenever something goes against the left, they take to the streets and they get on the airwaves, like you have Lori Lightfoot here and others, and they shout a bunch of nonsense. But then when things go their way, all of a sudden they're all for the Supreme Court. They do everything right. There's nothing wrong with what they say. Any of that stuff. It's amazing how they just are a reed in the wind. At one time they support something like Thomas Jefferson, like today. But then at another time, always racist, slaveholder, had an affair with a slave and had a child and all this other stuff. Look at him, bad him. We need to remove his monuments. We should get rid of George Washington, all the framers and founders. And they go out and say this 3/5 of a person stuff and gay men aren't going to be able to make love and all this other stuff. It's just the emotions just get so pent up that they shout these crazy ass things. And it's wild. It is so wild. And everybody's just sitting there going, oh, no, they're right. Like, where's the media at on this? You know what I mean? Like stopping on, hey, let me just follow up here on what you said. Can you talk about where this right of privacy is within the Constitution? Because if you're going to utilize the 14th Amendment, again, I'm an advocacy of, I want people to have privacy. I'm a very, very private person. But if it's not there, then maybe we should have a conversation about implementing that right, but then not allowing it to be so broad where you can just find other rights within a right that you've had prior justices do and that are still willing to do. Thank God you have people on the court that are somewhat awoken to what happened prior of going, hey, this was wrong. It was bad law. You just don't get to create things. And look, when they created different processes to when you can have an abortion, that is creating law within itself. So saying, hey, first trimester, second and third on when you could do it and when you can't do it, they literally created law and acted like the legislature, which is wild and mind blowing. And people are all for it. They don't want to talk about those things. They just want to talk about what fits their narrative. Well, you had Justin Trudeau here, Canada, kind of lecturing all of us on women's rights and just rights in general, which is just theatrical and comical in itself. Let's go ahead and watch it.
Today's a difficult day. The judgment coming out of the United States is an attack on women's freedom, and quite frankly, it's an attack on everyone's freedoms and rights. Let me be really, really clear. In Canada, we will always.
And watch more. I want to be really clear. In Canada, where we don't have the right of freedom of speech, where you don't have the right to protect yourself, I'm going to spend the next couple minutes here on lecturing you Americans on rights and what you should and should not allow people to do. Unbelievable. This guy's such a phony, man. Such a phony.
Defend women's rights to choose and continue to work to expand access to the full range of reproductive and health and services across the country. But today,
it's not very reproductive when you're killing children in a scale of millions. And if you look at Canada's abortion laws, I mean, you can literally abort at basically any time. So full-fledged human being, heartbeat, DNA, fingerprints, eyelashes, hair, fingernails, finger toes, everything. Centimeters from coming out of the womb, you can abort that thing in Canada. I shouldn't even call it that thing, that life, that baby, you can abort in Canada. This is how crazy. This guy's totally for it. You're basically looking at somebody that's totally for mass murder and completely fine with it, and has the balls to come on TV and lecture Americans about rights.
I think of those generations of women around the world, and specifically in the United States, who fought so hard to gain rights and continue to fight today to get more and more rights, because there's still so much more work to do, and are facing this devastating setback. It shows how much standing up and fighting for rights matters every day, that we can't take anything for granted, that we need to continue to stand strong to defend everybody's rights and freedoms.
Okay, well, I'm not going to sit there and put on a whole show of listening to this guy lecture us about rights when he's all up in arms about women having rights, but yet they don't have certain rights there in Canada that women do here in the United States. And actually, women in the United States have vastly more rights here than they do in Canada. But again, he's going to lecture all of us because he knows better. Phony dude. Frustrates the hell out of me. And I'm sure he frustrates a lot of you guys. But he's going to sit there and just, kowtow to the people and others. I hope you enjoyed that clip from the Bald Brad Show. If you did, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you can stay up to date on all our future content.